Today we're going to talk about zones, and we're going to snap some beans while we're talking about zones. These are beautiful purple beans. They taste just like regular green beans, but they come out purple and they're beautiful. And I can't remember the variety name. I've grown these several years. I used to grow burpee stringless. I found that these I like even better than the burpee stringless, and there's a bonus to these because they are so easy to spot in the garden, so you don't miss any beans, as opposed to like the green beans where you do miss beans. So I think what's going to happen is I'm going to have to do some of my chores while I'm talking to y'all because I just won't get done, and that's just the reality of a homestead. It's harvest season. I have to get all this stuff done, or we won't have food this winter. So basically, I'm just snapping these into nice sizes and putting them into a canning jar of cold water. So I'll put them in that cold water, and then when I fill that up, I stick it in the refrigerator and I start on my next jar until I have enough jars together to do my canning. One reason I do like to use these, this is a half a gallon. So when I fill them up like this, then I kind of know where I'm at as far as filling my canner, and I can start the canning process because I'll know if I want to do whatever in that canner. If I want to do 7 pints or 7 quarts or whatever, I'll know kind of like what I have because I've already measured it kind of by using these bigger jars. So anyhow, on to the topic. Today's topic is zones. So when you get a homestead, what you want to do is, if you're buying something, think about the building layouts. And if you already own something, think about what you're going to add to it, if you're going to add anything. And if you're fortunate enough to buy a vacant piece of land and build what you want, then you're in a really sweet deal there. But oftentimes you're buying something that already has infrastructure on it, whether it be roadways or houses or whatever. So here's the way I think of zones. First of all, think of it like a big bullseye, kind of like the target bullseye. And in the middle is going to be it's going to be the zone that is the most energy. It's your biggest energy hog, basically, in the center. So it's typically your house, because that's where you do everything. I mean, you're cooking, you're cleaning, you're doing your laundry. There's a lot of activities that revolve in the house. So that's usually your very center of your zone when you're thinking about zones. Now, out from that, let's call that zone 1. So out from that, you're going to have zone 2. Zone 2 is going to be things that require a lot of energy that are just outside your house, such as you may want to put like your herb garden there, because you're going to need those herbs probably every time you cook. You're going to want some herbs, some fresh herbs. You're going to want to put your your hotbeds and your cold frames and all that stuff right there, because in the spring that's going to require a lot of your time and energy, because you're going to be starting seeds. And you're going to want them really close to your house. And in addition, you got to remember that you need water for them. So where are you going to get water from? Probably the house, or a well that's near the house. So when you're setting up these zones, you're going to want to think about how much energy do I expend on this activity? And the more energy that you expend, keep it closer to the center of your homestead, wherever that may be. Usually your house is going to be the center of the homestead, hence the name Homestead. But out from that, every circle out from that actually gets bigger, but requires less energy. So you're going to start thinking about where's all your energy going to be spent. So in zone 2, let me think, what else would you want to put in zone 2? Probably a tool shed. You're probably going to want to stock if you heat with wood, you're going to want to stock that year's firewood right near the house, because when it's cold out, you don't want to be running to the woods for your firewood. You want it to be close to your house. Any activity like that. So any activity that you're going to spend a lot of time on that's kind of related to the house, but it doesn't belong in the house. That should be in your zone 2. Now let's move out. Let's call the next zone zone 3. And that's going to be things that are going to require pretty much daily, maybe more than multiple times daily access and usage. So that would be more like your kitchen garden. That would be, if you only have a few small animals, like say maybe like 6 chickens or something, you might want them in your zone 3, because they're going to need water and they're going to need attention, but a couple chickens isn't going to be a big deal. Now, if you have a chicken house where you have 100,000 chickens, you don't want them kind of that close. Usually you want them out a little further, but that's more commercial than like the traditional homestead. So in zone 3, let's say that would be more like your poultry. If you have small animals, maybe you just have a couple goats or a couple sheep. You would want your garden, your kitchen garden, I'm talking about. Got squirted in the face. Your kitchen garden, pretty much like your berry patches, like if you have strawberries or blueberries or currants or anything like that, shrubbery type plants, I would put them in your zone 3, because they're going to require some attention. You're going to be constantly fighting with birds. In my case, the birds like my blueberries and my strawberries, and that's a constant battle. Also grapes, like your grapevines, you probably want those around. And another thing I put in zone 3 is a workshop. My husband has his woodworking shop there. A couple reasons, you know, it's convenient. He can easily come in and eat lunch, or use the restroom or whatever, without having, you know, to travel cross country to get there. If you have a lot of acreage, you'll notice this really quickly. We have about 100 acres, and there's areas that I get to once a month. There's areas I get to once a week. There's areas I get to daily. There's areas I get to multiple times a day. So like if you start thinking of it in a sense of like, how often do I visit this area, then that's how you kind of like set up your zones. So another thing I would put in zone 4 is like bees, my honeybees. My honeybees require attention. Well, maybe every 7 to 10 days I give them attention. So, and that's, you know, just during the warmer months. So yeah, they get attention, but they don't need me to be there all the time. Zone 4, I would put like your firewood processing. If you're processing firewood for your home, I would put more of your commercial crops or your grains. I would put your orchard, if you have an orchard. Now if you just have a couple trees, they could go closer to the house. But if you're actually putting in, you know, 20, 30 trees, you don't really visit them all the time. They can go out further, and they're going to need the space as well. So another thing I put in probably zone 4 would be if you have larger livestock, like a cattle or if you have a lot of pigs, maybe, or maybe if your herds are of substantial size, I probably keep them a little further away from the house, just because of the smells, and they bring, you know, flies and things like that, and you don't really want that at your house. So yeah, I would put them in like zone 4. And let me think. Like in our zone 4, we would have our honeybees, our wood processing area. We have our sawmill there because our sawmill is running off of gasoline. And our firewood processing is all off of diesel, so we don't really need electricity to run that. Now those are daily activities, but usually like Chuck does them for the most part. I help occasionally if I'm energetic. Zone 5 is basically the land that you don't typically touch. Maybe once in a great while you go on that land. It's like your woodland areas, areas that you're just letting go, letting untouched for nature to do its thing. So that would be in your zone 5, and beyond that would be you know, then you're out off your homestead and that's your community. So those are kind of like your zones. Now, I said to think about it like a bullseye, but the reality is a bullseye is not how anybody ever, very few people would ever get a true bullseye approach to it, where like all your activities would be concentrated right in the middle. And that's because you're going to have terrain issues. You're going to have, you know, if you buy something with existing buildings or infrastructure such as roadways, you're not going to have choices there. Or if you do, it's going to be very expensive to change, you know, to alter terrain or infrastructure. So, like a lot of things, I'll try to put a map of how ours is laid out, and you'll see that we have, like in front of the, ooh, I don't like that beam, in front of the house we have a big pond, a 3-acre pond, and that obviously can't be used for crops, can't be used for a garden, but it's nice to have all that water and, you know, the fish life and that sort of thing. But yeah, that kind of limits, like one side of the house is not usable as far as like in those zones. So I mean, pros and cons there, but you lay it out the best you can, as long as you try to remember most energy, things that require most of your energy closer to the house, things that require less of your energy or less of your time further from the house. And then also keep in mind that energy also includes resources such as your ability to get water, if you need electricity or some other power, you're going to need accessibility to that as well. So I hope that all makes sense, and see you later. Make it a great day. Bye.